Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first unit of your American Literature course. Today, we're going to be talking about Columbus and the Americas. So, let's kind of jump into kind of the theme of what I'm going to be talking about and discussing today. And the main thing that we're going to be talking about is purpose. So more specifically, we're going to be examining the different viewpoints and perspective of America's quote unquote discovery. But before we do that, I would like to define what I mean by discovery and the perspective that we're going to be approaching our beginning our journey into American literature. Discovery can quite literally be described as the colonization of Americas from different crowns or different rulers, such as England and Spain. And colonization quite simply means to settle and to establish political control upon a country or a group of people. So that is what the Americas discovering the Americas were. They were an attempt at colonizing, and what we're going to be looking at today are three different accounts from Christopher Columbus, Bartolomé de las Casas, and Hernan Cortez. These are all names that require a different alphabet, specifically the Spanish alphabet, and for some reason it is just not working with my PowerPoint. I can't get any accents on the letters, so some of these names are spelled a little bit wrong. They're not pronounced the way that they're spelled, but a lot of these do have accents, and I'm sorry about not having that on there. But again, today we're going to be looking at Christopher Columbus's letters and as well as the accounts of Bartolomé de las Casas and Hernan Cortez. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the colonization and discovery of America and how these three different accounts both share the same traits and also contrast with each other in a way. So let's kind of jump into the first one. So first we have the letter of Christopher Columbus on his first voyage to America, 1492. This is a letter to the Spanish crown. Christopher Columbus at this point has received funding from the crown, and he and his man and his ship are going out looking for anything. They're going out looking for the Indies, and they are hoping to find whatever it is that they find, or what you will soon discover. But I'm just going to read the letter out loud, and you can follow along with me in this video. Sir, as I know you will be rejoiced at the glorious success that our Lord has given me in my voyage. I write this to tell you how in 33 days I sailed to the Indies with the fleet that the illustrious King and Queen, our sovereigns, gave me, where I discovered a great many islands inhabited by numberless people, and of all I have taken possession of their highnesses by proclamation and display of the royal standard, Spanish flag, without opposition. To the first island I discovered, I gave the name of San Salvador, in commemoration of His Divine Majesty, who has wonderfully granted all this. The Indians call it Guanham. The second I named the island of Santa Maria de Concepcion, the third Fernania, the fourth Isabella, the fifth Juana, and thus to each one I gave a new name. So let's get back to this idea of purpose. The reason we look at literature is because there are contextual clues and contextual representations of the way that we view the world and structure reality. Like many have said, history is written by the survivors, and literature and this kind of surviving idea of history are pictures, are representations of what reality was like for Christopher Columbus and those there. And as we'll see many of the same versions of reality interpreted in different ways. So first I'd like to take a look as to how Christopher Columbus interpreted his version of reality, especially in this letter to the crown. So first I'd like to point attention to the reasons that this letter was written and the reasons as to why this letter was eventually published. This is a letter to the crown, the group of people that funded Christopher Columbus and the group that Christopher Columbus is representing. And as you can see by the opening of this letter, I'll give you a quick minute to ask this question amongst yourselves. Why do you think he was looking for the Indies? What did you think he was hoping to find? And now that he's found it, what do you think his intentions are for the Americas? I'll give you like a quick minute to think about it while I get my sip of coffee. Okay, that was way less than a minute. But what I kind of get from this, and you can write this down in your notes, is that Christopher Columbus sailed as a representation of the crown, his funding, and the nation in which he represented. So, colonizing and the discovery of the Americas to Christopher Columbus was kind of an extension of the crown's on hand. He saw this as a way to spread the empire, as a way to kind of give something back to his crown. He was working as a representative of his nation, so the Americas to him were something that he could give to that sovereign crown. So let's kind of read a little bit more into this letter. So Hispaniola is a marvel. Its hills and mountains, fine plains, and open country are rich and fertile for planting and for pasturage, and for building towns and villages. The seaports there are incredibly fine, and also the magnificent rivers, most of which bear gold. The trees, fruits, and grasses differ widely from those in Wana. There are many spices and vast mines of gold and other metal in this island. They have no iron, nor steel, no weapons, nor are they fit for them, because although they were well made men of commanding stature, they appear extraordinarily timid. The only arms, weapons, that they have are sticks of cane, cut when in seed, and a sharpened stick at the end, and they are afraid to use these. Often I had sent 2 or 3 men ashore to some town to converse with them, and the natives came out in great numbers, and as soon as they saw our men arrive, fled without a moment's delay, although I protected them from all injury. At every point where I landed and succeeded in talking to them, I gave them some of everything I had, cloth and many other things, without receiving anything in return, but they are a hopelessly timid people. It is true that since they have gained more confidence and are losing this fear, they are so unsuspicious and so generous with what they possess that no one who had not seen it would believe it. They never refused anything that it asked for. They even offer it themselves and show so much love that they would give their very hearts, whether it be anything of great or small value, with any trifle of whatever kind, they are satisfied. I forbade worthless things being given to them, such as bits of broken bowls, pieces of glass, and old straps, although they were as much pleased to get them as they were the finest jewels in the world. Just a quick pause here. Christopher Columbus is talking about the natives of the land he's discovered. He's talking about the Native Americans, or what he believes to be the Indie people. One sailor was found to have gone for a leathern strap gold of the weight of 2.5 castellanos, and others for even more worthless things much more, while for a new blancas they would give all they had, were it 2 or 3 castanels of pure gold, or an arroba or two of spun cotton. Even bits of the broken hoops of wine casks they accepted, and gave in return what they had, like fools, and it seemed wrong to me. I forbade it and gave 1,000 good and pretty things I had to win their love, and to induce them to become Christians, and to love and serve their highnesses and the whole Castilian nation, and to help get for us things they have in abundance which are necessary to us. So again, let's kind of unpack this a little bit and get back into our idea of purpose. This is a piece of literature. This is what reality is structured, are the kind of reality that Christopher Columbus is building and sharing back with the crown. So think of the way that he's describing these native people. He describes them as kind of big in stature, but he also describes them as hopelessly timid. And if we were to unpack that a little bit in kind of the realm of a sovereign nation, that definitely sounds like as something that can be, easily colonized, easily taken over. He also talks a lot about resources. So the way that these resources from the native people, there's plenty of it. It's so plentiful that they can trade a little bit of nothing for something that's far greater. And finally, we also have this idea of introducing these people to Christian values, or at least the Christian values as determined by the highnesses or the sovereign crown. So, one final note that I want to say about this letter is that this is also an attempt to consolidate the ideas of Christianity, the ideas of discovery, the idea of colonization. And when I talk about the purpose of going to the Americas and the purpose and the reason that we write about things the way that we do, I really want to talk about how depicting things is a very intentional it's in a very intentional method. This is a very intentional way of speaking. And for your assignment today, I want you to think about that intention and kind of give me your opinion on as to what that intention was. So why do you think Christopher Columbus was writing this letter, and why was he describing the Americas this way? And be advised that this is also one of those situations where the narrator can be quite unreliable, as you'll see in probably our next reading, that narrators also have their own intentions. So, as an unreliable narrator, I want you to take into consideration what Christopher Columbus has at face value, but I also want you to consider the other ulterior motives. What are those ulterior motives, and do you think that those ulterior motives are justified? But let's kind of get into our second reading for today, which is The Destruction of the Indies by Bartolomé de las Casas. As you can see by this image here and the caption underneath, you can see that Bartolome de las Casas' ideas of the Indies, and especially the native people, are very different. We have something that looks very destructive, something that looks very violent. This is the title page of the version published in 1598. And under here, you can see this caption where a pregnant and nursing women and children and old people and any others that they could get their hands on, they were thrown into holes into the pits were filled, and then the Indians being pierced through by the stakes, which was a sore thing to see, especially the women with their children. So, a little bit of background on Bartolome de las Casas. Bartolome de las Casas was associated with the church, and his depiction of the Indies, or of the Americas, as you will see, is one that is very violent. He has a different idea of these native people, and he has a different idea of how these native people are being treated. If you remember, before, we have Christopher Columbus saying that these natives were so kind that you can just give them anything, broken glass, and they give you pieces of gold. Bartolome de las Casas has a kind of different viewpoint as to what's going on. Again, this is a letter to the crown, and I'm going to read it out loud for you all. I'm going to start here at Most High and Potent Lord. So, Most High and Potent Lord, because divine providence has ordered in this world that for the direction and common utility of human lineage, the world could be constituted by kingdoms and peoples, with their kings like fathers and shepherds, as Homer has called them, and therefore the most noble and generous members of the republics. For that reason, no doubt of the rectitude of the world spirits of those kings may be held, or with right reason might be held. And if any wrongs, failings, defects, or evils should be suffered in those kingdoms, the only reason for that is that the kings would have no notice of them. For those wrongs, if they be present and reported, it is the duty of the king, with greatest study and vigilant industry, to root them out. Considering then, most potent Lord, the evils and harm, the perditions and ruin, the equals of likes of which never were men imagined capable of doing, considering, as I say, those evils, which as a man of 50 years and more experience, being in those lands present, I have committed upon those many such great kingdoms, or better said, that entire vast and new world of the Indies land conceded, and given in trust by God and his church to the King and Queen of Castile, to rule and govern them, convert them to belief in Christ and the Holy Catholic Church, and give them to prosper temporally and spiritually. The Spirit was not able to contain himself from supplicating with your majesty, Most importantly, that your majesty not concede such license, nor allow those terrible things that the tyrants did invent, pursue, and have committed against those peaceable, humble, and meek Indian people who offend no purpose. So, purpose. Why was Bartolome de las Casas in his letter upon the destruction of the Indies? Why was he writing this letter? Quite literally, it was to bring light and to spread awareness into the destruction of native land and to native people. He saw great cruelty, and in his view and in his interpretation, is great cruelty when against the religion. It went against the Spanish religion, it went against Christianity, and Bartolome de las Casas did not think that this is what a um, a people that represent God should be doing. So Bartolome de las Casas, he went to do missionary work, and instead he saw um, kind of things that went against religion being committed in the name of the crown. So I want to give you all a minute, and you will have time to reflect on this in your assignment and your little worksheet at the end of this. But think about again purpose and um, writing this. Who is he writing this letter to? Um, to the crown, to the people. This letter was eventually published. And I also want to say that, um, again, these things are twofold. They have narrators that may or may not always be reliable. So we are exposing the violence that's being committed against native land and native people. So is this an attempt to stop colonization? Is this an attempt to rearrange colonization? Does Bartolome de las Casas even think of the native people any differently than Christopher Columbus does? That's something I want you to think about once you get to your assignment that I'll introduce quite soon. But we do have one more letter, and that is the letter of Hernan Cortez. He wrote 5 letters to the Emperor Charles V, and I'll kind of read a little bit of it here. In order, most potent sire, to convey to your majesty a just conception of the great extent of this noble city of Temexatitlán, and of many rare and wonderful objects it contains, of the government and dominions of Moctezuma, the sovereign of the religious rites and customs that prevail, and the order that exists in this as well as the other cities appearing to this realm. It would require the labor of many accomplished writer and much time for the completion of tasks. I shall not be able to relate in hundredth part of what could be told respecting these matters, but I will endeavor to describe in the best manner in my power what I have myself seen, and imperfectly as I may succeed in the attempt. I am fully aware that the account will appear so wonderful as to be deemed scarcely worthy of credit, since even we who have seen these things with our own eyes are yet so amazed to be unable to comprehend their reality. But your majesty may be assured that if there is any fault in my relation, either in regard to the present subject or to any matters of which I shall give your majesty an account, it will arise from too great brevity rather than extravagance of our prolixity in the details. And it seems to me but just to my prince and sovereign to declare the truth in the clearest manner, without saying anything that would detract from it or add to it. There are all kinds of green vegetables, especially onions, leeks, garlic, watercresses, nasturtium, borage sorrel, artichokes, and golden thistles. Fruits also of numerous descriptions, amongst which are cherries and plums, similar to those in Spain, honey and wax from bees, and from the stalks of maize, which are as sweet as the sugar cane. Honey is also extracted from a plant called maguey, which is superior to sweet or new wine. From the same plant they extract sugar and wine, which they also sell. Different kinds of cotton, thread of all colors and skins, are exposed for sale in one quarter of the market, which has the appearance of the silk market at Granda, although the former is supplied more abundantly. Painters' colors, as numerous as can be found in Spain, and as fine shades, deer skins, dressed and undressed, dyed different colors, earthenware of a large size and excellent quality, large and small jars, pots, bricks, and endless variety of vessels, all made of fine clay, and all are most of them glazed and painted. Maize and Indian corn, in the grate and in form of bread, preferred in the grain for its flavor to that of the other islands, and terra firma. Pâtés of bird and fish, great quantities of fish, fresh, salt, cooked and uncooked, the eggs of hens, geese, and all the other birds I have mentioned, in great abundance, and cakes made of eggs. Finally, everything that can be found throughout the whole country is sold in the markets, comprising articles so numerous that to avoid prolixity, and because their names are not retained in my memory, or of unknown to me, I shall not attempt to enumerate them. So, again, let's get to this idea of purpose. Hernan Cortez's letter seems to be a lot more heavy in terms of dialogue, listing, and cataloging. We have a type of catalog that seems much more descriptive and seems much more personal. Why do you think that is? Why do you think all of these things were envisioned and listed the way that they were? Also, if you go back a little bit, we see here that he's comparing a lot of what he sees to what's available in Spain. So why do you think he's making this direct comparison to Spain? This is kind of a tricky question, but for the purposes of this lecture, let's say that he's making these direct comparisons to Spain to not only make it seem appeasing to the crowd, but to also give some kind of validity and some kind of account of what can be seen. And this seems like something that has never been happened before. So the only way that this author can even seem to describe it is to compare it to something in Spain. But narratively, what does this do? Does this make it seem more real in the Spanish imagination, or does it make it seem like it justifies Spanish colonization a bit more? That is something that I'm going to ask you all in your quiz. So your quiz for this and for Unit 1 is to write about these three figureheads. We have Columbus, de las Casas, and Cortez. Each had a different representation and literary portrayal of the Americas, its land, and its people. So for this, I'd like you to write 3 to 4 paragraphs identifying these differences. I'd like you to use words and text from the course. And basically what I'd like you to do is just compare and contrast how you think the Americas were represented and how you think all of these figureheads both share traits and both diverge in traits. Okay? So this is the end of Unit 1. I have attached the readings, the complete readings to your Canvas page. You do not need the complete readings. You can definitely finish this assignment with the readings that I have attached inside this PowerPoint and inside this video. The PowerPoint will be linked as well. So feel free to use those, but if you'd like to read the entire letters or the entire document for each, they are attached to your Canvas page. I will see you in Unit 2, and be sure to turn in that quiz as soon as possible. Bye, everyone.